Okay, I'm going to go over some of the must-do questions for this unit. These are ones that you can definitely expect to see on the tests, or that you for sure need to have an understanding of to do well on the test. So 1 through 4, start with those, just solving for x. Okay, pretty much all of these are rounding to the nearest tenth. There's a couple where you're maybe doing nearest whole, or you'll do a radical on the special right triangles. Okay, so first one, I know one thing to keep in mind looking at it, okay, if we're given two sides, basically you can always use Pythagorean theorem if you have two sides. Okay, so kind of think through the list of options that we have and what we've learned. So here I would do a is 9, b is 17, my x is c. Remember, a and b are interchangeable, but I'm going to do 9 squared plus 17 squared equals, you can use x squared or c squared. Okay, remember, you don't have to like make this 81, whatever, you can just add them together on your calculator, and that should give you 370. And then to get rid of the square root, the opposite is to get rid of the square, the opposite is to take the square root. So that gave me 19, well, it was 19.23. Remember, nearest tenth is the 2, so that 3 makes it just stay 19.2. I think the phrase that most of you guys knew was 5 or more, add 1 more, 4 less, let it rest. So, all right, so on that one, I was finding the hypotenuse. The one that may be a little different here is like on 2, you're finding a leg. And this triangle is just rotated, so 14 is my C, 11 would be A, X would be B. And I don't care if you use B or X, remember, as long as you have the correct number. So when I plug that into Pythagorean theorem, which of course is just A squared plus B squared equals C squared, I would do 11 squared plus B squared equals 14 squared. You don't actually have to square those numbers. You can just think, okay, minus 11 squared. All right, and if we do that, it's going to give us 75. And then the square root of 75 is going to give us b, or x, is approximately, it's 8.66, which would make it 8.7. Okay, and on this one, I was looking for a leg, so you want to make sure that makes sense. We know it has to be less than 14, since it was a leg and not the hypotenuse. Similar note on 1, I knew it had to be the longest side. 19.2 is longer than 9 and 17. All right, go ahead and take a quick pause and try to do 3 on your own. The answers are on the back page of your review. And then 4, I will get you started. So really what you're doing is you want to focus on this being, just look at the right triangle right now, because we can only use Pythagorean theorem for a right triangle. So I would have 8 is 13, looking for B, and then C is 18. So that's 13 squared plus B squared equals 18 squared. Subtract out 13 squared. A quick reminder, you cannot just do like 18 minus 13 is 5. You actually have to type in like 18 squared minus 13 squared. And that gives me 155. And if I take the square root of that, B is approximately 12.4. Okay, but B is just from here to here. So if they went all the way across, well, I know since these two legs here are congruent, this is going to end up being our midpoint there. And so I can just double that to get the whole thing. So this is also 12.4. So then all the way across would make x to equal 24.8. Okay, so like I said, go ahead and should have taken a pause there to do 3. If you haven't already, then do that. All right, 5 and 6, you have to draw the picture. So I think 5 was kind of the one we had the most trouble with setting up, so I will look at that. It says Jenny lives 8 blocks north of Mary, and take a quick reminder of your compass here. So up on your paper, you want to think north, right, east, down or bottom, south, and left side west. Okay, so if Jenny lives 8 blocks north of Mary, so that means, so say Mary is down here, and if Jenny's 8 blocks north, I have to think north up on my page, and that is going to be a distance of 8. And it says Abby lives 12 blocks west of Mary. Well, here is M for Mary. West would be to the left. Kind of ran out of room there. Put A for Abby. Make sure you put those letters, okay, or you may not get the points for your picture on the test, okay? And then what is the direct distance from Jenny's house to Abby's house? If they want the direct, it just means like you're not going here and then up. You want this straight line, which is also C, or the hypotenuse. Okay, so then we just simply make these A and B. All right, and let's solve that. I'm kind of solving these. I'm typing these in as I go, so hopefully that's a good time for you guys, that you have time to type them in on yours as well. So don't just copy mine. Please make sure you know how to type it in on the calculator. All right, so I got 208. And then you want to take the square root of that, which would be approximately 14.4, because it does say nearest tenth. All right, here was the boat question that we did. So it has a rope from the top of the mast on a sailboat. So that is just like the mast is the pole that you see in the middle, okay, like you see in cartoon ships kind of and things. So it is attached to a point that is 18 feet from the mast. So when you're measuring distance, you're going to typically measure along like a flat. So from here, and that'll be my 90, that'll be 18 feet there. And the rope is 26 feet long. So from the top to this point is 26, and it's looking for how tall the mast is. So I'm just going to make that B. Also, you can think, well, tall, we always measure that straight up. So it's our height that we're looking at. So again, we have two sides, so we can use Pythagorean theorem. 18 squared plus B squared equals 26 squared. On this one, since we don't have two legs, we want to take the hypotenuse and subtract the 18 squared for the leg, which gives me 352. And then take your square root, which makes it approximately, I got 18.76. So nearest tenth would be 18.8. Make sure you're careful about your rounding. Okay, so given the side lengths, determine if a triangle can be formed. If yes, determine whether a triangle is acute, right, or obtuse. Be sure to show your work as proof. All right, so the first part with can a triangle be formed, that was where we add the two shorter sides. So I do 20 plus 21. Okay, well, that would be 41. That has to be greater than 29. So I would say, okay, 41, well, that is greater than 29. So that works. That is a yes. It could form a triangle. If it were less, it would not work. All right, so this is like A and this is B here. I don't really care if you show me this part, because I assume you can probably quickly know in your head that those two will be bigger than 29. Part B is the part we do forget sometimes. This is where we use the converse of the Pythagorean theorem, meaning that we flip it. So if we flip it, we want C on the left side. Well, in this case, I know C is going to be 29 because it's the longest side. So I do 29 squared, and you compare it to 20 squared plus 21 squared. Okay, let me figure those real quick. So go ahead and figure them with me. So 29 squared, I got 841. And then 20 squared plus 21 squared gave me also 841. So I would say, okay, well, those are equal, which gives me a right triangle. You may have to look back at your notes for this, or I can write it down here. Equal is right triangle. If the c squared is less than, it's acute. If the c squared is greater than, it's obtuse. All right, so same thing on 8. First, I add the 2. So I would add 5 and 9. That's 14. It is greater than 10, the longest side, or the C. So I can make a triangle. So now I want to do that c squared compared to a squared plus b squared. So 10 squared compared to 5 squared plus 9 squared. So that's going to be 100 compared to 25 plus 81. So 106. Okay, and be sure that you read it from left to right. So 100 compared to 106 is less than. Okay, so less than is acute. Go ahead and take a pause and complete 9 and 10. If you haven't gotten to those yet, remember the answers are on the back page. Please be checking them. All right, now our special right triangles. You will get that little help paper for that on the test, but I'll go over these with you, and I kind of gave you an extra to practice on each of them because I know this was a kind of a tough topic, so each of them has another one that you can practice beside it. Be sure to give your answer in radical form. All right, so 11, first thing you want to think, 11 is a 45, 45, 90, because basically there's this and there's a 90, so this other one has to be 45. Okay, those angles are not going to be your side lengths though. All that does is help us find which type of triangle it is to know which rules to use. Well, I have, and then you want to kind of think, okay, well, square root of 10, that's a leg. X is also a leg, and on a 45, 45, 90, the legs are congruent, and y would be the hypotenuse. All right, so I know, all right, well, that one is going to be congruent to x then, so x is also square root of 10. And then to get it from, like on the paper, it should say leg to hypotenuse. All right, and you want to multiply it by the square root of 2. So I take the square root of 10 times the square root of 2. Well, I can multiply those because they're both radicals, so I keep the radical, and then 10 times 2 is 20. You have to simplify this, though, to give exact simplified radical form here, okay? So that's where we split it into 2 radicals. The first one should be a perfect square if it will simplify. So you got to think like perfect squares are 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, etc. Okay? Well, I know just looking at those, all right, well, 4 will go into it. And then the other one you get by just dividing. So 20 divided by 4 would give us 5. Your first one should simplify to a whole number if you pick the correct thing. So square root of 4 is just 2, but square root of 5 does not simplify. So we just attach that. And that is my answer for y, okay? So you probably want to practice the radical part because that's definitely where we make mistakes. So if you think you might need some help or some extra practice on that, I would do 14. All right, now 13 is a 30, 60, 90 because we have the 60, we have a 90, meaning this has to be 30 to add up to 180. So I can use my rules for that. 22 they give us is the hypotenuse. Y is going to be the short leg. X is the long leg. All right. So to get from hypotenuse to short leg, you divide by 2. So 22 divided by 2, give me 11. And that's my Y. And then to get from my short leg to my long leg, I multiply by square root of 3. That, I can't really multiply those since one's a radical and one's a constant, so I just leave it like that. All right, and then 15 has both types. You do need to start with the top one though, because they didn't give us any measurements on this 45, 45, 90. So we got to do the 30, 60, 90 before we can kind of start on the other. So again, they gave us 6, which is the hypotenuse. So half of 6 to get the short leg, or Z, would be 3. All right, and they don't say that I need this side, but I do because it's going to be congruent to Y. So that's the long leg of the 30, 60, 90, but it is also this common side to just be a regular leg on the 45, 45, 90. So to get from short leg to long leg, I do 3 times the square root of 3, which is already in simplified form. So we said that is congruent to the Y here. So that's my Y. And then last step, if I have this, I have a leg on the 45, 90, and I need the hypotenuse. So you're going to multiply by square root of 2. So 3 square root of 3 times square root of 2. I keep the 3 because there's no other constants, and then 3 times 2 in my radical would be 6. And 4 is the only perfect square smaller than 6, so I won't be able to simplify that anymore, and that will just be my x. All right, 16. Find the missing side, then find sine, cosine, and tangent of angle A. Give your answers as fractions in simplest form. So missing side, we are given 2 sides. I just need to use Pythagorean theorem to find the third. I would make, this is A, this is B, this is C. So I'm going to do 6 squared plus B squared equals 10 squared. And that should give you 64. Then you take the square root, which will come out to whole numbers, so that'll be 8. So that is my missing side, so that's there, and I can fill it in here. Okay, now the mistake I saw a lot on the quiz with this next part is people actually trying to plug it into the calculator. If they just ask for sine, cosine, tangent, they just want the ratio, okay? So I'm working from angle A, so I circle that angle, and from that one is how I label. So 6 would be labeled my opposite, 8 would be adjacent, and 10 would be hypotenuse. Okay, well, sine, so remember, you have to have these memorized by the test. SOHCAHTOA helps us remember it. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Well, the opposite is 6, hypotenuse is 10. I can divide each of those by 2, which will then give me 3 over 5. All right. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so that's going to be 8 over 10, which simplifies to 4 over 5. And then tangent is opposite over adjacent, so that's 6 over 8. Divide both of those by 2, which will give me 3 over 4. So this is all they want. They do not want you to type in the calculator like tangent 3 divided by 4. Okay, that's looking for an angle, and that's not what they want here. They just want the ratio. Okay. All right, 17 is basically the same exact thing. So take a pause and try 17, and then I'll do 18 with you. All right, you should have 17 done and hopefully checked your answer. So 18, we have if sine of theta equals 21 over 29. Usually we pick a spot for theta. They have already put it here on the triangle, so we need to work from there. So if this is sine, sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so that means 21 is the opposite. So that would be across from B. Opposite would be 21. And then the bottom is the hypotenuse. So that would be here. That's hypotenuse. Before you can do anything else, you need to find your missing side, which is also the adjacent side. We have two sides, so just do Pythagorean theorem. So you would, technically you're looking for A, but so A squared plus 21 squared equals 29 squared. All right, I'm going to subtract 21 squared from the 29 squared. And it gives me 400. And then take the square root of that, which will give you 20. Exactly. I think all of these I made so they come out to a whole number. Okay, so that's your missing side. It's also my adjacent. Please make sure you are labeling these on your paper. The students who I've seen who have messed up on those didn't have a label written down, okay? And that's just kind of silly. Okay, you can easily label them, so please don't make a mistake because you didn't do that. All right, so now we're just picking the new ratios. Remember, we're looking at theta, so this is like my circled angle you're working from. All right, well, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, or A over H. So adjacent is 20 over hypotenuse is 29. That one will not simplify. It's 29's prime. And then tangent would be opposite over adjacent. So opposite is 21 over adjacent would be 20. All right, so 29 should be pretty much the exact same thing. Different numbers, obviously, but it gives you a really similar one to try here. So try that on your own and then check your answers at the back. So you'll probably need to take a pause. Okay, so 20, we are starting to get into more of actually solving the trig equations or ratios, so rounding to the nearest tenth here. You want to pay close attention if you're looking for a side or an angle. So on 21, my x is along a side, so I am looking for a side. So always circle the angle they give you or the one you're looking for. So if I'm looking at 54, I would label. Remember, if you take a line, you drew it from that. The side that you would hit and the side that doesn't make up that angle is your opposite. So x is opposite. 9 would be adjacent because this one's a hypotenuse. I don't even label this one over here. That way you don't get confused on which trig ratio you're using. So opposite and adjacent would be tangent. All right, so tangent, and then I put the angle after that. Tangent 54 equals, tangent has to be opposite over adjacent, so make sure that like the x is on top here, the 9 is on bottom. All right, and when the variable is on top, the number's on bottom, you're just going to do the number times that. So type that in. We got 9 times tangent 54. All right, and that would give me 12 point, I got 38 So 12.4. Okay, and you see that side is a little bit longer than this side, so that makes sense. I will say just a minute ago, I had just downloaded the calculator app, and so I realized like I got 6 point something, and I was like, that's weird because that side looks longer than 9. And I checked my settings, and the radian was on. So make sure if you're not getting right answers, click on mode on your calculator, and then the third row down should be set to degree and not radian. Okay, so be careful about that. All right, so for this on my answer, I would want to say, okay, which trig ratio will I use? Tangent, and then x equaled 12.4. All right, 21, so I circle the angle again, and then I label, okay, well, x is hypotenuse, 24 would be opposite. Opposite and hypotenuse is sine. Go ahead and fill that in down here. Sine of 46 is, and for sine, I want opposite over hypotenuse. So I need the O to be on top. So it's 24 over x. Okay, be really careful on these. So if you notice differently, the x is on bottom, meaning you have to take the number and divide by the sine 46. So it's going to be 24 divided by sine 46. That will definitely change your answer if you multiply them instead. So do be careful on that. All right, I got x is approximately 33.4. I did have to round that. It was 33.36. And if I look at that, okay, well, that is bigger than 24, and it's the hypotenuse, so that seems reasonable. Take a pause into 22 and 23 on your own, and check your answers at the back. Okay, so small mess up here. This whole page was supposed to be bolded. Like, these are all kind of must-know ones, so sorry about that. I'll pick a couple of the 24 through 27 to do, and then do one of the triangles with you, though. So, let's start with, we'll do 24. So, on these, where you're solving for all three angles, all three sides, main thing, you just need to think through the list of like everything we've learned. So, can you use Pythagorean theorem? Can you use trig ratios? Can you use inverse trig? Can you use sum of 180? So you got to think through what you have, what you can use. Well, here I know I have two sides, so I'm going to be able to use Pythagorean theorem. So start off and just label sides ABC. Remember, the sides are across from their angle. Or if you look at this like side, well, there was already B and C, it was missing A. Okay, so that side I will label A. The 9 will be C, and then our missing one over here will be B. You can go ahead and fill in down here on the bottom, where lowercase are sides, uppercase are angles. So A would be 4.2, C would be 9, and then I also know that angle C is 90. All right, and then Pythagorean theorem, I would do 4.2 squared plus B squared equals 9 squared. Right, and then I want to subtract 9 squared minus 4.2 squared would give me 63.36. And then if I take the square root of that, I get approximately, well, it's 7.95, so actually 8. So I can fill that in there. All right, we do only have one angle here. We just have the 90, so we can't use sum of 180. We're going to have to use an inverse trig ratio. So try to get in the habit of just always start with A. A lot of people on their quiz flipped A and B on the angles because they just tried to skip it, not circle, not label, and then they plugged into the wrong thing. So you're not always going to use sine or always tangent or whatever. You have to look at the sides they give you. So if I circle A, okay, well, they give me 4.2. So that is the opposite side. And they gave me 9. That's the hypotenuse. I don't want to, you can use the 8 if you want. It's safer to use the ones they give you just in case you made a mistake, okay? So opposite and hypotenuse is sine. Remember, it's not always. So if I'm doing sine of A, okay, opposite would be on top, so that's 4.2 over 9. Okay, well, if my angle is what's missing here, I have to do the inverse. So if you remember on the calculator, that is the second button, and then you just hit sine like normal. So it should look like this once you enter that on the calculator, and they'll give you parentheses, and you do the top divided by the bottom. Okay, so type that in. Make sure you know how to type that in. So second sine, and then 4.2 divided by 9. Okay, and then look back. Okay, I circled A. I wrote A here. So A is approximately, I got 27.81, so just 8. And then I would write that down right away so you don't forget what it was or think it's B. All right, once you have 2, then you can just subtract to find the third one. I usually just do 90 minus this other one. Some people add these two and then subtract from 180. Some people do 180 minus 90 minus 27.8. Lots of ways to do that. Doesn't really matter which way you do. Okay, and I got 62.2. All right, 26 is really similar to the 24 that we just did. So I would take a pause here and try 26, or you can come back to that. So C24 if you need help. So take a pause, work on 26, and then when we come back, I'll try 25 with you. All right, so 25, again, start off, you want to label your sides. They're opposite from their angle. So 9 will be A, and I can go ahead and write that in. I don't have B, and I don't have C. I do have angle C is 90, and I have angle A is 40. So I would probably just start off there, and well, we can quickly find B, because we can do 90 minus 40 would give us 50 degrees. All right, and then I cannot use Pythagorean theorem, so I'm just thinking through my list. I use sum of 180 to get this. I can't use Pythagorean theorem because I only have one side. Okay, well, we use trig sometimes. You can use trig, so sine, cosine, or tangent, when you have one angle and one side, which is what we have. So you want to circle the angle they give you, the 40. Don't use the 90, always use the other angle they give you. And then, well, if I, across from there would be 9, and that's my opposite. And then it doesn't matter if you pick B or C. To start with, I would probably pick B just because it's going to be easier later to find C, but it doesn't matter. And that would be adjacent. So opposite and adjacent is the tangent ratio. Remember, that's not always the same. You got to pick which one it is. So tangent 40 equals opposite over adjacent. It's O over A. So I need the 9 on top and the B on bottom. I like to use B instead of X. That way when I get down here, I'm not confused on which one it goes under. Okay? All right, if B is on bottom, I have to do the number divided by the trig ratio. So I'm going to do 9 divided by tangent 40. All right, sorry, messed my calculator up. But that gave me, B was approximately 10.7. Now we'll go here. All right, I think most people were doing Pythagorean theorem after that, so I'll show that. So once you have two sides, you can do Pythagorean theorem. So I would do A is 9 squared plus B is 10.7 squared. I'm looking for C, okay? So just type that in. I just add them if I have two legs. So I got C squared equals 195.49. Don't round that until the end, so I'm going to take the square root of that whole thing. And that gives me approximately, 13.98, so that would actually go up to 14. And always think, okay, does that make sense for this side to be 14? Yes, because C should be the biggest, which it is bigger than both of those, so you're good. All right, 27 is really similar to 25, so I would take a pause here and try to do 26 and 27, and then I will show you 28. All right, 28 and 29. Find the area of each triangle round to the nearest tenth. Remember the formula. Okay, so what we talked about with these is they are non-right triangles, and they have this side angle side relationship, meaning like side, then an angle that's in between, and then the other side. When you're given that, we can use this formula. A equals 1/2 times A times B times sine C. So A is a side, B is a side. Those are interchangeable. I could have labeled 7A and 3B, and it's fine. Capital C, I know that's the angle because capitals represent angles, okay? So then I just plug in, you can do 0.5 instead of 1/2 if you want, it doesn't matter. Okay, times A is 3, B is 7. Make sure you type the sign, and then C would be 145. If you're in my class, I'm pretty sure I made a typo on the answer key on this and didn't catch it till after I printed them. So the answer might be a little off. Sorry for that. I think I just forgot to take half or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but all right. So I got on this first one 6.02. So that's approximately just 6. So you can go ahead and try 29. And remember, I think there's a typo on the answer key. I think it needs to be halved. Okay, and the word problems. So on these, you will get a point for drawing the picture and then like for the actual answer as well. So the town park does an outdoor movie night every Saturday during the summer on a large screen. Katie is sitting 36 feet from the base of the screen watching a movie with her family. So I'm just going to put a little person here. This is Katie. Maybe the movie screen is here. We measure distance along the ground. So if she's 36 feet from the base, so that's 36 here, that would be, the screen should be going straight up, so that's my 90 degree. And then it says the angle of elevation from Katie to the top of the screen is 24 degrees. How tall is the movie screen? So angle of elevation, you want to think that is measuring that angle where the line goes up, and it's within the triangle, so that's 24 degrees there. All right, they said how tall is the movie screen is what we're looking for, so that's measuring this height, so that is my x. All right, so now you're just using trig to find that missing measurement. So I circle the angle they give me. I label x is my opposite, 36 is adjacent. All right, well, opposite and adjacent is tangent. Tangent 24. Opposite has to go on top, so x over 36. and multiply those because the number is on bottom. Okay, so I'm going to do 36 times tangent 24. And I got approximately 16.02, so just 16 actually. So like I said, you'll get a point for the work here, point for your equation, a point for your actual measurement findings, okay? If you think you need some help on that, I would try 31 and 32 for some extra practice on those. All right, 33 says the angle of depression from a 757 passenger airplane. Okay, this is not a number we're using, it's just a type of plane, by the way. I'm just going to write plane here. On its descent into JFK International Airport is 7 degrees. At the beginning of its descent, the airplane is 4,100 feet above the ground. So here's the ground. Oh, let me make that a little straighter. Okay, here's the airport down here. All right, it says it is 4,100 feet above the ground. So that is measuring straight up here. All right, and then the plane's gonna fly down at an angle. So since its angle of depression, that is technically measuring out here. Or we did kind of like a rectangle with it. So it's actually measuring here, but that angle is congruent to this bottom one. So whether it's depression or elevation, you're just always measuring along the ground. That's the angle you're going to use for your ratio. That's not the 90, okay? And it wants to know the straight line distance from the plane in the airport. So that would be here. So this is my x. All right, so we can use trig here because we have one side, one angle, so that's trig. So I circle the angle, label 4,100 would be my opposite, x would be my hypotenuse, and now make your equation. So opposite and hypotenuse is sine, so sine of 7 equals 4,100 over x. All right, well, the number is on top, so I do 4,100 divided by sine 7. It's going to give you a very large number, so I got x is approximately 33,642.6. All right, and if you need some extra practice there, I would do 34. All right, I believe 35 should have been bolded as well. Sorry about this, man. Did a lot of edits this time, but so a hockey player takes a shot 23 feet away from the goal. Okay, so if I have my goal here, here's your player. Measuring away from the goals along the ground, and this would be like our 90 over here. And then it is a 12-degree elevation. So that's here. Now this 5 feet, you're not actually using in your triangle. That is what it needs to, like that is what the goal is 5 feet. But since it's hockey, we want it to be, we need the x, which is what we're looking for, and we're looking at this height. X needs to be less than 5 feet, okay? So now we're going to work from the angle they give us, which is 12. I would label 23 adjacent and x opposite. So opposite and adjacent is tangent 12. I want opposite on top, 23 on bottom, and multiply those. Okay, so I got about 4.9. Okay, since it needs to be less than 5 for hockey, you want to think, okay, overall question is, will he score? And we would say yes, because it's less than 5. Anything over would not. Anything else less would work. Okay, last one here, and this is also from lesson 5.6. So we have a pentagon is inscribed in a circle with a radius of 24 inches. So remember we said if you're given a shape in this unit that's not a triangle, try to make it into one. So radius is from the center to the edge of the circle, and that's 24. Well, in this case, that doesn't make a triangle, but if I connect another radius, it would. And since it's a pentagon, I can make 5 triangles. And I know the radius, those are all going to be congruent to each other, so I can mark that. And it wants the area of the whole pentagon. Since we don't know that yet, though, you want to focus on one triangle to begin with. So, and you're going to use your triangle area formula. So 1/2 equals AB sine C. Write that down if you want. Okay, so we have 24 would be our A, B would be this other side, which would also be 24, and then you would need to find what C is. So if you remember, we know all the way around the circle is 360, and I can divide by, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 angles that we've split that into. So 360 divided by 5, give me 72. So that would be my angle right there. Now I have enough that I can use my formula. So I'm going to do, so figure that. Remember, you can use 0.5 instead of 1/2. Okay, and you should get 273.9. Okay, since that is one triangle, you want to take that times the number of triangles. Since it's a pentagon, it's going to be times 5, but if it's a hexagon, times 6, heptagon, times 7, etc. And if you round at the end, your answer may be a little bit different, should just be slightly, but so I got 1,369.5 for the overall area there. All right, so next part is find the length of one side. So we're looking for like this here, all right? In that case, we cannot use Pythagorean theorem because this is not a right triangle. So you want to, essentially we're just going to try to make it into one. And we talked about we can do that by just cutting it in half, drawing a line straight down to make our 90 there. And if we cut that in half, this angle is now 36 degrees. The hypotenuse is still 24 because that's still a radius. This side is not 24 though because it doesn't go all the way to the circle, so we don't know that one. But the one we're looking for is X down here. Now this will only be halfway across, so we'll have to deal with that in a second. But so to find that, we will use trig and we will do sine 36 equals X opposite over hypotenuse is 24. So multiply 24 by sine 36, and that is always going to be sine, by the way. And that gave me X is 14.1. Okay, but remember that is just halfway across, so you want to double it. The sides are equal, so all the way across then will give you 28.2. So just think this times 2. Alright, so one side would be 28.2. Okay, and last part is the easiest. So find the perimeter, just multiply by how many sides there are. So that was one side, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 28.2 times 5 is all you're doing. Again, that's coming from it being a pentagon. If it were a different shape, we would multiply by however many sides there were. Alright, and that gave me 141. I would definitely try to do 37 on your own. Make sure you know how to do that. You can check your answers on the back page. All right, tests will be next class, and all homework for Unit 5 will be due that day as well.